What's up guys? Today we're gonna talk about Tesla all day long. I'll go over on Tesla in 3 parts: technical overview, I'll be doing my regular technical analysis for the future, I'll share price predictions. The good, I'll inspect and analyze all the reports, news, and I'll share my insights. The bad, I'll talk about what may go wrong based on predictions. What are the blogs that may stop Tesla in the future? Okay, let's do it. As you know, there is a giant hype and momentum about Tesla nowadays. And these are not baseless. All the price action and trading volume prove that people are massively interested in Tesla. Tesla is also always on the radar of big funds like ARK Invest. And Cathie Wood's optimism is a well-known indicator for Tesla, even though she sometimes sells the shares. Now, all the future predictions about Tesla are massively optimistic as well. For example, Tesla may produce 10 million vehicles a year by 2025. 10 million. Ouch. Will it happen? Who knows? As you may have heard, Apple is speeding up their fully autonomous car. The key take here: rivals of Tesla are increasing. The answer to everything is innovation and vision. As you know, before Google, there were many other search engines. Before Apple, there were many other mobile phone producers. Before Facebook and Twitter, there were so many other social media platforms. But why did these companies take over and dominated the market? Because they brought something needed and wanted to the table. They innovated something different than their rivals. Actually, innovation and vision are your guide for investment for the future. Years ago, Tesla's financial reports were not bright at all, but the price was steady or rising. Why? When you buy a stock, you do not pay for the past or present. You pay for the future. Okay, let's get back to Tesla and do some technical analysis first. If you follow my Twitter account, I posted this tweet when Tesla was $1,089 and I bought option contracts that day and gave the target of 1,160 as the first target. I have sold a couple of my contracts around $1,160 for a really nice gain. Thank you, Tesla. I'm keeping the rest because they have a really long time to expire. Now, as you can see, there was this volume cluster, a high volume node as a resistance around $1,160. Volume profile never lies. Price now keeps bouncing between high volume nodes and keeps piercing these volume voids, also known as low volume nodes. Okay, for the next rally, we must clear this volume cluster first. This means that we need to see the price should clear $1,200. At least keep testing it. Once it's clean, there's only one little volume cluster around $1,230. Now, after that we are free. I believe that the price will break all-time high and reach $1,500 in no time. What about stop loss? I always have a stop loss price in my mind. If I see a market change permanently, not a small pullbacks, I may cut losses between $950 and $1,000. If the price enters this volume void, it could be really dangerous. Now let's look at the chart from a distance. If you can see it, we have a giant bull flag right here with the target of $1,500. Then another visual target as $2,000. However, technical analysis is just basic guidance for entering, taking profits, and stopping losses. Nothing happens in a day suddenly. Tesla is not gonna go straight to $1,500 green days one after another. Maybe it will have a pullback first to $800–900. Who knows? There will be lots of pullbacks and volatility. This is why I always warn people, never buy short-term options unless you're a day trader or a scalper. You'll lose money 90% of the time. Okay, let's see some news and fundamentals. Let's talk about the good. As Elon Musk promised, he keeps selling his shares. This builds a trust between the CEO and the investors. Trust is so important when it comes to investing. Tesla is still the most valuable EV company in the world, and its market cap may reach $3 trillion by 2025. If it can achieve 10 million vehicles a year by then. Is it possible? Hard to guess with the current economic condition of the world. Their current pipeline delivers around 200 to 250,000 vehicles per quarter. This is an incredible number. Just imagining 10 million vehicles per year, it would be outstanding. The future is the EV. This is for sure. More autonomous vehicles, less human interaction. Because people are fed up with traffic and waiting. They just want to use their time for more productive work. One other thing that I find optimistic about Tesla is Elon Musk is not afraid of taking risk and innovating and spending cash. SpaceX is another great example of that. Reusable rockets change all production pipelines and cost-saving methods, an incredible approach to the future. Some people had their fun about the Cybertruck, but to me it was a fun project. Captured many eyes. At least showed that Musk is not afraid of trying new stuff, trying to innovate. Okay folks, let's move on. What about the future of electric vehicles? As I told you before, the EV sector and autonomous driving are the future. I have zero doubt about it. It's estimated that more than 700 million electric vehicles will be on the road by 2050. Believe me, the EV market will dominate everything when the time comes. It's like smartphones dominated normal cell phones in a flash. You may think that electric vehicles are the smartphones of the car industry. By the way, we are also getting ready for the Tesla phone. This makes Tesla more than a car company and makes it an innovative tech company. Let's talk about the bad. The bad is more related to global economy rather than the individual companies. My eyes are always on personal spending. We had a great run with all the money printed for a while. However, now what? If we look at the forecast, we can see that the future is not bright at all. You may produce the most advanced vehicles, but it has no meaning if there is nobody to buy. My second concern is inflation. Inflation is becoming sticky and the number one concern in the global economy right now. We pushed a crazy amount of printed money into economies in the last 2 years. However, what did we do with this money? Spending, spending, and spending without any productive work or investment. In some countries, we saw incredible GDP reports with huge growth rates. But these reports mostly depended on personal spending, not production. Now also personal spending started to decline, and the future forecast is weak. I'm not here for a solution to this global problem. I believe most bright minds are working on these problems instead of trading cryptocurrency futures right now. I just hope that. Rivalry is another risk for Tesla. Companies and investors saw the light on the EV sector for the future. And this brings more rivals to the table every day. The advantage of Tesla is people got used to Tesla and built a trust for it. Now, many other rivals will try to do more innovation for the people. Will they work? Who knows? However, nothing is permanent in this world. Let's talk about the technical fluctuations of Tesla stock. If you're a short-term investor, especially with the options, Tesla stock may burn you quickly. Your contracts will lose and gain money so quickly thanks to its implied volatility. If you're not a scalper or a day trader who gets in and out quickly to Tesla stock options, I would never touch short-term stock options ever, period. However, if you are a simple shareholder or a long-term investor, these do not concern you at all. You should always know this. Opportunities never end in the market, as long as you protect your capital. As a result, will Tesla stock hit $2,000? Yes, definitely, in my opinion. My first big target is $1,500 as a result of the giant bull flag, then a possible consolidation and a pullback, then another bull flag with the target of $2,000. This is why I always purchase long-term options with Tesla. It's just an easy way of making money without stress. Okay folks, we are concluding another episode on my channel. I've tried to do lots of research and analysis and I inspect them. Then I gave all my predictions on them. I hope that you found it useful. Please subscribe and like the channel so I can grow it bigger. Please take care and see you soon.